This is good. This is good. I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic. So let me just hop over to my phone, make sure the audio sounds good firsthand. Terrific. Advertisement about crypto. Yes, please teach me more. Excellent. We're figuring this out. This is great. This is great. I'm thrilled. I love it. Australia, Melbourne, Australia. I am too much of a chicken to surf Australia. Just so many shark videos come from Australia, so I will never be in the water there. Some great questions off the bat. So I'll just share my thoughts, though, initially why my mind right now is on like green tea, tea tree oil. First of all, like I grew up, and I don't know how many people know this, but I grew up in like a naturopathic, alternative health kind of household. And like a lot of young people, I didn't need to see the doctor, but I regularly saw chiropractors and naturopaths. And so I come from a place where like I grew up and very comfortable and familiar with like the nuance of that side of medicine, I suppose. And then coming into my medical degree and I guess being a physician now, like everything I have experienced before, I have to weigh it against physiology, like just verifiable, reproducible physiology, and then also clinical studies, how it works in the real world. And green tea and tea tree are, I was going to say my favorite like natural product. And there's like, what does that actually mean? No one really knows, but I really do like them. We do know a lot of how they work in vitro or in the lab. We have a decent amount of clinical studies to see how they work in the real world. And so, I mean, because of that, like what's to argue with, right? If you can find a defined function for them, if we know how they work, then there's probably a deliberate role. So we'll talk a little bit about that to get things started. And then I'll jump into some of these questions. Colorado, marvelous me. I grew up in Colorado Springs, in fact. Okay, so let's start with green tea, and here's why. Okay, so unlike my counterpart, Dr. Shah. Actually, let me start there. Some people wonder, like, where's Dr. Shah? He's still here. I just, at this point in time, in our careers, I just have a little bit more flexibility with my schedule, and we've been wanting to do lives like very consistently, but right now I'm the one with a little bit more time, so I'm the one who's doing this with you. He is here-ish with me, but unfortunately, he just isn't able to pop away like I am at the moment. Now, so green tea. So TikTok, super random. One of the things that's been talked about lately a lot, one of the things that blew up was oily skin. And so I made a video and just commented like things that can help oily skin. Yes, you can mechanically remove it. You can squeeze your nose to your heart's content and you will get sebum or oil out of that, but it will refill. Things that can help treat it, of course, are going to be your retinoids, niacinamide, and then green tea. And green tea got so many rep. I had so many people like fact checking me, like, oh, and my favorite part is when someone tags Dr. Shah. They're like, Dr. Shah, oh, look at this. You got another goober out there on TikTok. Fact check this. And I'm like, okay. So I feel comfortable saying that and doubling down on it because we do have lab-based studies showing that green tea can perhaps prevent or decrease oil production. But then on top of that, we do have 2 clinical studies that also kind of help complement that. And for an over-the-counter ingredient, I think that's actually pretty decent. Additionally, it's kind of inert. So like absolutely green tea is something you can use to complement your other oil decreasing ingredients. And it does have a lot of benefits here too. So I think we can just even run the gamut. And we've talked about green tea before. We did briefly in our review of some of the Ordinary's products because they had a green tea, caffeine EGC. They have a caffeine EGCG serum. That's pretty nice. But green tea actually has a lot of studies. It's one of the best studies, natural ingredients over the counter. A lot of the studies actually done for genital warts. So we know that it can be helpful there. And sometimes we kind of extrapolate that can help with normal warts as well. Of course, it's an antioxidant like any plant-based ingredient. It can have some photoprotective benefits, absolutely not to the extreme of sunscreen, but it can help blunt UVB's effects on inducing oxidative damage and damage to our skin. Let's see here. What else do we have? There's a little bit in eczema, basically through its anti-inflammatory properties. Not really robust though. I wouldn't implement that routinely in my practice just because there's not really robust studies on that. Then there is also some help in, some thought about acne. There's studies go both ways with acne. So maybe helps with the inflammatory lesions, maybe helps with the blackheads and non-inflammatory lesions a little better. But overall, some studies showing that it can help with acne, maybe just through inhibiting some of the inflammation that's associated with acne as well. And then anti-aging is actually like the least effective or the least studied, even though we like the most. And then, of course, we did talk about it there too. Green tea can help inhibit 5-alpha reductase, that enzyme that is intimately involved with hormonal hair loss. So that's green tea. Like, we have studies. It has functions. It's useful in a lot of products. If you want to mimic the oil production reduction benefits, I actually have, this is the brand. I don't have the emulsion, but so Isn't Tea, this is like, I've highlighted this before, but it's one of these toners that's like a non-stripping, non-astringent toner. So I actually think if you want to use a toner, it's a decent one. But this is like a nice way to get green tea on your skin after cleansing. But the same brand, Isn't Tea, has a green tea emulsion, and that probably closest mimics the studies on oil reduction. So you can check that out. Then tea tree oil. So this one, I know the smell. I've used this since childhood. Like, this is just something it's almost nostalgic for me. It's almost nostalgic because of how much I used this in childhood. It's absurd. So what we do know about tea tree, though, its benefits are mostly because it's antimicrobial and can be anti-inflammatory. The downside is it can be irritating and allergenic. Both are true. But then we do have a lot of studies showing that tea tree can be useful in a lot of different conditions. So my favorite conditions to use tea tree are going to be dandruff, because it can kill the yeast and decrease the inflammation, which is largely what actually contributes to that greasy scale from like dandruff, seborrhea, seborrheic dermatitis. Acne, because it functions very similarly to benzoyl peroxide in that it kills the bacteria and it decreases bacterial resistance. So that's like really what our benzoyl peroxide does. So you can use it in that way. Now, I think benzoyl peroxide is more effective and the ceiling's higher and the body of evidence is stronger. But if you need like a third line alternative, you can't tolerate benzoyl peroxide, you can't tolerate salicylic acid, glycolic acid, tea tree oil is a reasonable consideration there. It actually is one of the only natural ingredients or plant-based products, I'll say plant-based ingredients that has been studied in the treatment of actually active infections. So the way that most of these ingredients tout their antimicrobial is they use them on open wounds or something and show that they can prevent bacterial overgrowth of the wounds. But tea tree has been studied with tinea. I think it was on the feet, tinea, where you get like a superficial fungal infection in the top layer of the skin. I think it was on the feet for that study. And then also impetigo, where you have bacteria, staph, or strep that causes an infection on the skin. And they were active infections. So that's actually very unique to tea tree oil. So I think we can confidently say it can be helpful in minor skin infections. Definitely not to the extent of, I think, normal traditional therapy, but can be very useful there. And I say that with a little bit of a smile because one of the studies is actually comparing tea tree to an oral antibiotic. But I would absolutely not bet money that that's going to hold true in real life. So again, we have dandruff, we have acne, superficial fungal infections, superficial bacterial infections. I wouldn't use it there just because I don't think the body of evidence is very strong, but it just helps, again, strengthen. Yeah, it's antimicrobial. Now, the ways I would use this, though, so it's best as a rinse off because it's allergenic and irritating, right? So the less it's in contact with your skin, the better. You can still have some of the benefits from it with that short contact time. You can leave it in your hair, on your skin, maybe for 5 minutes before rinsing off. And then also with storage, it is photosensitive. It needs to be in an opaque bottle. And it is very temperature stable at like physiologic temperatures. So it can live with you in your room. It usually comes in like an opaque bottle. I have this awesome green tea cleanser that I'm loving. Or not green tea cleanser, tea tree cleanser. There it is. It's Aromatica tea tree balancing foaming cleanser. It's just like got a very nice feel to it, but I think cleansers and shampoos are a really nice place to incorporate tea tree if you wanted to. So just saying, I wouldn't use 100% essential oil. We do know for a fact that the higher the concentration, the more irritancy. And we do know that the studies showing the benefits are like at less than 3 to 5% concentration. So 100% concentration, definitely more than you need. Okay, that's all that was on my mind. I just think that there's a body of evidence for those things, so it's worth bringing it up. So let's see here. Let's hop around the questions again. So I'm going to go again. My goal is to go to the beginning and to the middle and then kind of hop around because I don't want people who ask the question early on to miss out or not have it answered. And I don't want to just totally focus on the newer questions, but let's see here. Oh, hey, that's funny. When to drink green tea, in the morning or the evening? So I would 100% base my consumption of green tea, which I have a ton of green tea here. This isn't the green tea, but Pique has sent us some green tea and some other types of tea and oral supplements. Super convenient, but I would take it in the morning. I would drink it in the morning because I am a freaking diva when it comes to sleep. I am the world's worst sleeper. I have a really bad sleep latency insomnia. And so any caffeine I consume after 1 p.m. is maybe going to keep me up. So for me, I would drink it in the morning only because of the caffeine benefit. I think as far as the antioxidant benefits, I'm not sure. I don't really know if it matters that much. So you would theorize that if you consume an antioxidant in high concentrations in the morning, then you would have a maximal benefit of the antioxidants as you go throughout your day and get bombarded by pollution, by sunshine, by dirt clods, whatever is coming your way. Now that's in theory. So if you really want to maximize that benefit, again, maybe use it in the morning, consume it in the morning. But that is 100% theory. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to matter that much. Your body is constantly regenerating and creating free radicals like superoxide dismutase, and using things like glutathione in your body, all of that to offset and create antioxidants and decrease the constant damage that is life for you, your skin, and your body. So morning, but I don't think it matters if you're going for anything else other than the caffeine. Oh, talking about tea tree, is it useful for talking about acne? Scars? No. Getting rid of pimples? Yes. Always tuned in here all the way from South Africa. I've said this before, another place I won't surf. I'm a big baby when it comes to big sharks because I grew up in Colorado. I'm not scared of black bears, but I'm scared of sharks. How often do you reapply sunscreen if you are staying indoors? We get this question a lot. And it's kind of hard to answer because it depends on your goals. And I've started to say this more lately because I feel like for a lot of people, if your goal is to mitigate skin cancer, 1,000%, the sun is the number one contributor, probably 1,000-fold of UVA, UVB, and visible light like blue light. So if you're indoors, you're not by any windows, and you're really just trying to mitigate your risk of skin cancer, reapplying your sunscreen every 2 hours might be excessive. But it's not like it's not beneficial because we do know that all of my lights here are extending to me all the blessings of the visible light spectrum. We do know that our devices, which we are in constant interface with, provide blue light as well as other visible light. So this is where if you really want to be aggressive about treating hyperpigmentation like melasma or something like that, then reapplying your sunscreen indoors makes a little more sense to me than preventing skin cancers. And you would be wanting to use something with iron oxides or that's tinted because one of the main things that's getting through is going to be your visible light and then also UVA through most of the windows. UVB is probably getting knocked down quite a bit through windows and things like that. Oh, this is interesting. Want to get started on a retinoid for anti-aging benefits? Where to find a dermatologist? Is there a Yelp for derms? That's a good question. And what credentials to look for? So I guess let's approach this two ways. So we have retinoids. So this individual is asking I want retinoids specifically. I want to see a dermatologist for this. Now, the utility of prescription retinoids, I think, is very real. I think retinols over the counter have benefits. I think there are studies to completely back that up. There's even some studies saying they might have as good of benefits as prescription strength. Anecdotally, from personal experience, I don't think that's necessarily true. just by sheer volume of what I see every day, basically. But the prescription strength retinoids, I think, are beneficial, especially if you're not getting the results you want. And how to find a dermatologist. So credentials, let's just go by like length of training. So like MD, DO, they have merged. These are your physicians now at this point in the United States. And so you can just have in mind they've gone through 4 years of medical school, 4 years of residency, plus or minus additional fellowships and whatever else. So like these individuals, very highly trained, they have a lot of experience before they even hit the door seeing patients. And then we have PAs and NPs, also providers who provide a great service, especially in this space. They have usually a lot of experience before they start seeing patients, or they're working alongside with the dermatologist to help provide the space or service in this space as well. And so those are the degrees or credentials you would want to be looking for someone. And, I would actually also venture to look on their website. So obviously I'm going to start with Google. Google doctors, dermatologists near me. Boom, there's your list. And you will find, though, that dermatologists have quite a bit of difference in their personal interest. So sometimes if you go to their website, like their office website, there's like an About Me for each provider. And I would actually take a look at that, because some dermatologists do zero cosmetics. Some dermatologists do have a lot of cosmetics. Some dermatologists have a special interest in lasers. And so depending on how aggressive you want to be with your anti-aging routine and skincare, I think actually finding someone who is heavily invested in the cosmetic side or has the tools available like lasers in their office is actually very useful, because they will be able to talk to you about the retinoids, but then they're also going to not only be able to talk to you about the whole scope of therapy available to you, they'll also be able to deliver it for you if you want it. Because I think that's something that gets missed sometimes, is like, yeah, you're using topical retinoids, but what if you want more? There's probably more out there. So that's where I would start. Okay, let me float. Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. We're gonna do two of these side by side. So, Nadia Galvez, San Antonio, Texas here. Have you ever thought about starting your own line of skin products? For me, no. I feel like it just doesn't make a lot of sense for me, because between the two of us, quite honestly, like obviously Dr. Shaw is just so much more recognizable, and like he carries such a reputation within the social space. I would be very surprised if he doesn't at some point. I think it just makes so much sense for him. Whether or not I'm a part of that, we're always just like very happy for each other, success for each other. So I think it just comes up where we are in life when he decides to start it. It is a lot of work. And I think the most important thing, and I think it's something we saw from other people who started their own skincare lines, is we all have dreams, aspirations, and goals. And sometimes it's very difficult to get them out in the real world in the exact way you want to deliver it. So, Dr. Shaw and I have talked about this on the back end, like, could they do this? Could you do this? Could we do this? It's a lot of work, a lot of investment, absolutely something that might be worth exploring. But for me, probably not something I will invest in specifically. Then next question, though, is Megan. And I guess also with that, though, before I switch on, is like, what are you bringing to the space that's new? Because if you're going to commit to starting your own skincare line, I think you have to have a vision of what you want to bring into the space that's not already there for people. Because like that's what we are trying to do with this channel, right? We want to talk to you, help provide information. We felt like there was definitely not like a black hole gap that needed to be filled. There's so many excellent dermatologists now on social media that it's awesome. But at the time when we started, we're like, oh, this is great. Let's try to take what we're doing behind the scenes, like with tutoring, writing questions, like medical education. Let's like bring it all to the front, just talk to people. So that was something we want to do. But if you have a specific vision or there you see something that's lacking in the world, like especially within the skincare space, that's when I think it makes a lot of sense to launch a brand. Megan Osowski, hey, Dr. M, besides skincare, how do you use self-care? So important. I'm like get very passionate about this. Because medical school is hard. Residency is in some ways harder. And along the way, you lose your 20s and early 30s, if not more of your time and yourself to medicine. So let me try to see 3 tips. Let me just make up 3 tips for self-care. One is enjoy the journey. We all have goals in mind. We'll have somewhere we'd like to be maybe in the future, whether it's relationally, whether it's professionally. But if you are not enjoying the work that it takes to get there, if you are not enjoying the day-to-day moments with the people around you, you're just going to miss out on life entirely. Like, you may end up hitting your mark, getting to the goal you want, but you're going to miss everything about life. And you're going to look back and it's just going to be a vacuum of lost time. So 1, enjoy the journey. 2 is, I don't know. I'm like really big on like exercise. For me, that was just a very good outlet, and it became a necessary outlet. Because I don't know if we talked about this before, but I've had depression and anxiety in the past. And so for me, that was like a very functional way to offset some of that like nervous energy. And so I think like exercise or finding a hobby, something that you can pour yourself into to invest some of your creativity, an outlet, I think that's extremely valuable. And that can be other people. Some people just love to cook, and like Artie Sequeira, it's one of my favorite people on the Food Network. And some people just love to cook, and that can be your gift to the people around you, your gift to others. And that's an awesome way to do it. And then the third one is, I guess I'd say time management, or just be aware of your time. So I think a lot of people, myself included, we lose a lot of time throughout the day without realizing it. Like, we wake up, we lay in bed, roll around for like an hour, or we are just staring into our phones, mostly our phones now, or watching Netflix for like 2-3 hours a day. You can achieve great things personally and professionally, relationally, with 2 to 3 extra hours a day. So just be very self-reflective, look at how your time is spent, and then figure out, like, is that this time is our most valuable currency? Is this how I want to be spending my time? These like little nuggets of gold minutes. So those would be my main 3 things, I guess, about self-care. Flip. Let's see. Let's see. That's interesting. Oh, happy Friday. I'm here in Littleton, Colorado. Love it here. It is beautiful there. Hi from Mexico, Montreal, London. Copper peptides. So I touched on this last week. I like peptides, topical peptides I'm fine with. There's definitely evidence to support a lot of the topical peptides working in the ways that they say, collagen growth, just overall skin health. Copper peptides are actually kind of a different animal. I don't think the evidence is really there. And physiologically, it doesn't make as much sense as just normal topicals as well. Okay. Bernardino Coronado, Dr. Maxfield is hyaluronic acid or HA injected under the eyes. So filler, a good treatment for dark circles. So yeah, actually. So again, dark circles under the eyes. I know some dermatologists are like, oh, it's a myth. Not that they don't exist, but that is like one unifying cause of dark circles under the eyes. And we also kind of talked about that in our dark circles video a long time ago, is that there's just so many things that contribute to it. So increased blood vessels, like under the eyes, that just shadowing from the large and prominent orbit or orbital structure of the bones here. Thin collagen showing the underlying orbicularis oculi muscle underneath, which is reddish brown. And so what filler does in this area is it is actually going to, obviously it's going to poof this, let me show you, like poof the area under the eyes here forward. And that would help with the shadowing. It would help decrease the either blood vessels or muscle showing through thin skin. So yeah, it can help with dark circles. This is something you want a very experienced hand with, though. A lot of people have different techniques to inject the hyaluronic acid here, because obviously this is an extremely sensitive area. I would definitely be seeking someone out who has a particular interest with cosmetics, definitely someone who's board certified or has a lot of practice in this area. It definitely could be helpful for dark circles, though. Definitely could. Let's see here. Oh, hi, Doc from Indonesia. I know I talk about this more and more, but like I really am starting to miss some of my family out in California and that whole community out there, where I was like, we just get a lot of homegrown Indonesian food, and that is impossible to find elsewhere in the country. It's impossible. Okay, next. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, thoughts on Cintella Asiatica. So I like it. This is one of the ingredients. Just looking around here, I know I have probably 10, 20 products rather with this ingredient in it. It's beneficial. It's one of those, I think it's one of those ingredients that didn't have a lot of attention 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago. But just because largely through social media, I think we're just getting so much exposure from non-traditional ingredients. This is one of them, and it can be soothing, decrease irritation, inflammation. I love this ingredient for very like self-inflammatory conditions and sensitive skin conditions like rosacea. This is an ingredient I look for over the counter when I'm considering someone with erythromatogenic rosacea, that red vascular sensitive skin flushing type. So I like this product. I don't really see much of a downside with this product either. So if it's in a product where you may not need that anti-inflammatory soothing properties, I mean, like, do we ever really need a product without any soothing properties? So like, it's definitely a great ingredient. I would be looking for this and would be happy to see it in pretty much anywhere. So this is a nice question. So this is from Mo, Dr. Maxfield. I was wondering if you could tell us more about the types of conditions you see daily, from general dermatology to infectious diseases to systemic diseases, and what's it like as a dermatologist? So this is a very interesting question, only because like on social media, we do talk occasionally about conditions that are outside of like skincare space, traditional skincare space, cosmetic kind of space. But that makes up the bulk of what we do in general practice for a lot of dermatologists. So the spectrum really goes for like general dermatology. A lot of it's like skin cancer, early skin cancer detection, prevention, surgical removal. And that can be taken to the extreme of like Mohs surgery, where you are taking out like pretty significant skin cancers, like on sensitive areas, nose, around the face, and then doing pretty complicated and extensive reconstructions in the office. And some Mohs surgeons go into the operating room as well. So that's like the skin cancer side. Medical derm, of course, we see a lot of acne and rosacea. That's a very foundational part of what we do. And in part, I don't think that's going to go away, because like, even though we have great over-the-counter ingredients, there's still a limitation to what they do. And that limitation will always be there, I think, because the more effective the treatment, the more potential it has for adverse events. It's just physiology, like for blood thinners, for example, the more effective the blood thinner, the risk of bleeding increases. But some people will have to have like a good, strong blood thinner because they have clots or something. And same thing goes for medical derm or like even acne. Some people have highly inflammatory scarring acne, and you're going to need something that's very, very effective at knocking that back. And so that's like acne and rosacea. Similarly, that's a very big part of practice. We do see a lot of dermatology is interesting because we see a lot of zebras. And by zebras, I mean, like, let's say you're in a field in the middle of Oklahoma. You have 1,000 horses out there. And then all of a sudden there's like a black, white, stripy horse. Obviously it's a zebra, right? So we see a lot of rare medical conditions in dermatology. They can be pretty severe and extensive. Obviously, lupus is a big part of a lot of people's practices. Blistering diseases where the whole body can blister up is something we see not uncommonly. We see that often enough. We get consulted to the hospital to see aggressive infections that start or may involve the skin and then involve the whole body as well. A lot of autoimmune conditions. Psoriasis is an autoinflammatory, autoimmune-ish kind of condition that we treat extensively and see a lot of. Eczema the same way. So a lot of rare conditions, a lot of complicated medical dermatology, a lot heavier procedures than I think we share and see on social media a lot. Okay, and then I guess on the same thoughts, a shekel bend, what exactly causes skin cancer? So just by the numbers, we know that maybe 90% of the damage to our skin comes from the sun. And so the sun is the number one contributing cause of most, not all, but most skin cancers. We do know that a lot of skin cancers, because we know and have isolated the genes and genetics of these things now, some are caused not by the sun entirely. Some are influenced by viruses, like the polyoma virus is involved in the Merkel cell carcinoma. And this is like just a lot of nuanced stuff, right? So like a lot of the sun damage, a lot of external forces, whether it's like chronic long-standing burns, viruses, genetics. Some people have like genetic defects where they can't repair their skin. Because every cell in our body is like a game of telephone. It's like this cell tells the next cell, hey, divide. But then somewhere along the lines, after 5 billion replications and games of telephone, someone says like divide indefinitely. And then that error gets translated through and we have cancer cells that just never stop growing. So there is some inherent aging factor that our skin cells just make mistakes as they go that can contribute to cancer as well. Let's see here. Oh wait, what did I just see? But let's see here. Dr. from Star Wild, Dr. Maxfield, what are your thoughts on PRP? So PRP, or platelet-rich plasma, this is a procedure where you take someone's blood, you spin it down, you separate and isolate parts of what's in our blood. That includes some growth factors, platelet-rich, meaning you can keep the platelets in. Some people just use a serum where they remove the platelets too, but regardless, the point of it is mostly to gain some of these things that include growth factors. And then you use your own body's growth factors after you've taken it out, isolated it, and then you inject it back into the skin. And I went up here because oftentimes we're using it for hair. I've seen a lot of this over the past 4 years personally, and then additionally, like through other people's offices. And also the literature has grown robustly in the last 5 years on this topic as well. I think it's helpful. So I can't negate that. I think it can be helpful for some people. And I think it's helpful in the same way a lot of topical treatments are helpful, especially in the setting of hair loss, in that like you use it and it goes from like diffusely aggressively thinning to still looks pretty thin, but it's better. And that's why with hair loss, we always talk about this in a way like you should use multiple ingredients, because it doesn't seem like we have one ingredient, even minoxidil or Rogaine, that's going to knock it back completely. Until we do, we're going to want to use multiple things to offset hair loss. And PRP, I think, is a good adjunctive therapy in there that can be helpful and complement other things you're doing. The only one treatment that is dramatically better is going to be surgery, and that takes multiple treatments sometimes, and you still have to use the topical treatments and maybe even take finasteride. So hair loss, super complicated. This can have a place there specifically, and my main knock on it though is it can be very cost prohibitive. I mean, you heard what I detailed about the procedure. It is very time consuming, especially in the setting of dermatology, and there is actually a good amount of cost associated with getting the materials for it. So it's pretty expensive to get done. It can help. And that was PRP again. Let's see here. Can I put retinol eye cream over my face, from Ratika Arasu? And yep. So Dr. Shaw lured me into this the other week, and he was like, basically it's the square and rectangle argument, in that not all products for the face can be eye products, but pretty much all eye products can be facial products. And the reason is that because the same ingredients work the same in both areas, but the eye skin is so thin that you might not be able to tolerate the facial products in that sensitive area. But then you flip it the other way around, and you can pretty much take anything from this ultra thin sensitive skin and use it here. Now, the caveat with that, because it seems like everything today we're talking about has caveats, is that because you're using like lower strengths, lower concentrations, and gentler ingredients, you might be able to find something a little bit more aggressive that you could tolerate better on your nose or your cheeks than the sensitive skin of the eyes. But otherwise, yes, absolutely, you can take that ingredient product for the eyes and move it here, because it's just all about irritancy and skin thickness. Sketching with Zara is popping out blackheads, skin damage. Yes. Now, you can do this to varying degrees. So blackheads being those open comedones where you have the oxidized material, which gives these dilated pores, that like black quality in the center. And, going after these physically, like with Q-tips, that's a pretty gentle way to do, is not nearly as bad as squeezing like a blind pimple or a pimple under the skin that's red and inflamed. That is an absolute mistake every time. Never squeeze a pimple that is a blind pimple under the skin, especially if it's highly inflamed. That is only going to aggravate it, make it worse, make it last longer, and increase the risk of scarring. Now, these blackheads or open comedones, they tend to behave a little bit differently than the inflammatory types. And so that skin is like not as aggravated. And so you can mechanically remove these. There are so many videos. So many people love these videos. I'm like indifferent about it. I don't get a lot of satisfaction from watching them. So you can go on TikTok, find a million ways to do this, but be as gentle as possible, because there's no point over aggravating your skin to get these out, because they will come back. They will refill unless you're using some of those anti-oil ingredients that I talked about before. Retinoids, niacinamides, even green tea can be helpful there. Oh, Tampa, Florida. That's nice. I went to school down there. Beautiful place. Tampa, Florida. Like some of the prettiest stinking water I've ever seen. And some of the best grouper I have ever eaten. Some from Lucia. Red blood dots can only be removed in a doctor's office, ? Red blood dots can only be removed in a doctor's office. So this question is most likely alluding to or asking about either telangiectasias, like little dilated blood vessels, or little cherry hemangiomas. I'm not sure which, but either way, they're both going to be small vascular growths, one of which is actually just the blood vessel dilating itself, and the other one grows with a little bit of surrounding skin that helps give it some more structure. I'm trying to think if there's anything really topically that can help get rid of them. Once blood vessels form, there's virtually nothing that effectively knocks them back over the counter, and you really are limited to procedural things. So for either one, yes, I think you're going to be limited to going to see a dermatologist specifically, because we just have equipment in our office that would be able to treat these. We can use something called hyfurcator, which uses different types of electricity in different forms, and you can zap either one of these structures, given that they're pretty small and they'll probably go away. Or most effectively, if you have a vascular laser of some kind, like PDL or KTP, you can zap these away extremely effectively. So nothing over the counter works great. We do some topical medicines that can constrict blood vessels, and even those are temporary, of course, and it wouldn't help significantly for some of the red spots and vascular thoughts on the face. Let's see. Best way to prevent acne and texture in oily skin. Acne and texture in oily skin. So it's going to be retinoids, because the foundational treatment in acne, plus they exfoliate. So it's going to help with the texture and the acne. Otherwise, though, you can use salicylic acid and use that as like a leave-on to help with the acne, and also to help with the texture a little bit. You can use glycolic acid, which would be a little bit more aggressive. Lactic acid, other alpha hydroxy acids would actually probably both help with the same thing. So really, you're looking for ingredients that both help with acne, maybe decrease oil production, whatever role in acne, but then also exfoliate. And there's no rule saying you can't do both, right? So you can use your retinoids plus use exfoliants. I would venture not to use them at the same time, same day, and maybe even just use the exfoliation once a week. The retinoids is staples 5 to 6 days a week, and then that would complement each other for treating both. Okay, let's see. From Shekel Ben, again, using sunscreen during the day if you're working in front of a computer all day, but not indoors. I talked about this earlier in this video as well, but if you're looking to prevent skin cancer, probably not. If you're looking to prevent photo aging, probably will still be helpful. There's some caveats to that, but I did talk about that a little bit earlier. Turtles, huh? Okay. Let's see. Green tea on skincare, talked about that at the beginning as well. I went pretty deep into how green tea works at all. So this, like all the others, will be posted, and you can kind of go back and look at that. What are the best products for surgical scars? Oh, I had one in my bag. I think Strataderm. Anything with silicone is going to be the best for surgical scars as far as remodeling the scar itself. As far as overall wound healing, Vaseline is definitely the go-to for multiple deliberate reasons. Keeps everything locked in. White petrolatum is very physically inert. It can prevent secondary infections as good as topical antibiotics. So Vaseline for an open wound, Stratoderm is like a brand, but the silicone base for remodeling of scars and preventing hypertrophic scars. Those are your two foundational best ingredients for wound healing and scars. Sorry. Oh wait. Let's see. Let's see. Alpha-arbutin, alpha from Tony Rock, alpha-arbutin and retinol together. So the question is, can you use alpha-arbutin, which is good at helping with hyperpigmentation, and a retinoid of some sort together? And the answer is yes. Yeah, they complement each other very well, especially in the hyperpigmentation space. So absolutely be a great duo in a skincare routine there. They really would complement each other well. From Kiss Covis, hi, how to cure hyperpigmentation on brown skin. So we talked about this a lot, and this is like a very broad topic because there's the whole side of this, like a lot of people want to lighten their entire skin. And I think generally Dr. Shaw and I both have taken kind of the idea, like, that probably should get phased out. Like that whole idea that to be darker is not as much in the US. It's like mostly in other countries right now, I think. But we get this question a lot. And we're not fans of that concept in general. But we do understand like their post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, all this dyspigmentation occurs from sun damage. Like that, I get that. So darker skin is just more sensitive. We're more prone to experiencing post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So in general, the same ingredients that treat hyperpigmentation can be irritating. So you have to really be more cautious the darker your skin tone is and make sure that you're not going to get a lot of inflammation from these ingredients. Ingredient list is long, but tranexamic acid, kojic acid. Tranexamic acid, by the way, I think someone actually alluded to this too earlier. It started as an oral medication. We use it as an oral medication. We actually use it also as an injectable medication or even in a surgical medication. So it can be used or has been used orally. Not sure it's safe, and it would be that. Actually, I would say it's not safe enough where I would recommend it orally for something like melasma, but it would be effective. So tranexamic acid, kojic acid, glutathione, also available orally and topically, retinoids, all these things, hydroquinone being the gold standard. These help decrease dark spots and darker skin. The main, again, threshold is just irritation, much more prone to getting darker pigmentation or post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. Let's see. Hi from A, the letter A. Can you talk about scalp acne and how to treat it? So this is interesting to me. This is interesting because most people don't get acne on their scalp. Now, we get acne like bumps on the scalp. Like you definitely can get inflammatory pustules in the hair. It's usually not acne, though. It's usually something else, like folliculitis, which is inflammation and infection around the hair follicles. There is a thing called scalp rosacea. Dr. Shaw and I have argued about this ad nauseum, but I think I concede. I think definitely scalp rosacea exists because it's like an extension of your face. I don't think all types like extend up there, but you can get some acneiform bumps up there. If you're in general, though, let's say you do have acne up there, although that's exceptional, or if you have acne like bumps up there, you really need to be looking at things that are going to help kill yeast because that lives in our hair, probably bacteria as well, if that's causing the folliculitis or inflammation or acne, and then anti-inflammatory stuff. And again, actually, like the beginning of the video, tea tree oil actually has a nice role here. We use medicated shampoos for this as well. So seeing a dermatologist can be extremely helpful for this because we have access to like some really good antimicrobial ingredients in shampoos and anti-inflammatory ingredients that can help. So ketoconazole is one that could help with this, depending on the cause. It's over the counter as Nizoral shampoo. Trying to think what else. Tea tree is over the counter. You could use coal tar. Not sure that'd be helpful for the acne. I take it back. Don't use coal tar. I changed my mind. I was starting to think about how it works with psoriasis, scalp psoriasis, and things like that. I was like, maybe the inflammatory part would be helpful, but it'd probably be outweighed by the thickness and greasiness of it. Take it back. It's like the downside of a live. I'm pretty much everything I'm saying, I'm thinking out loud, and it's actually kind of hard. uh, but then, of course, things that you take by mouth can be helpful too. Um, and also, but like I alluded to, like make sure you're treating the right thing here with, I guess, scalp acne, because scalp acne is not entirely common. Can exist, but it might not just be acne that's causing it all. What are your thoughts on bakuchiol? Bakuchiol I like. So the bakuchiol, the main draw of this plant-based ingredient is similar to rosehip oil. They're like, oh, maybe these phytoretinols, these plant-based things can have similar effect as your retinols. And that would be great. And the reason we're always looking for that is because retinoids can't be used in pregnancy. Retinoids, rather, can't be used in pregnancy, and they can be irritating. So bakuchiol does have some evidence that it can have similar benefits to retinoids. So I think overall, it's less effective than retinoids, less proven than retinoids, better tolerated than retinoids. So if for whatever reason you can't use a retinoid, using bakuchiol makes perfect sense. If you can tolerate or use a retinoid, you could use both, or you could probably just use the retinoid, and then bakuchiol doesn't have as much space or as much of a role here. And then as far as like how it acts in pregnancy, we think it's probably safe. And unfortunately, that's probably going to be the answer for a long time, because we generally don't study things in pregnancy. So it's probably going to be safe there. And it's often touted as like a pregnancy safe alternative for retinoids. So can tolerate retinoids, love it. Love it. You can add it to something with retinoids. But if you're tolerating and using your retinoids and you love your retinoid, you may not need bakuchiol. I think that's totally fair. Let's see here. Elena, is tranexamic acid for the face the same as tranexamic acid used in trauma and medicine? So yeah, same ingredient, different dose, different application, completely different role, which is interesting. And it's probably formulated a little bit differently on the back end too, but the same primary ingredient is the same. Let's see here. I often work out in the afternoon. Should I wait to do my morning skincare? Hold on, let me read this. It moved. Let's see. From Kelsey Cummings, I often work out in the afternoon. So should I wait to do my morning skincare after I shower, or can I do it in the morning still? I don't want to waste my money if I'm just washing it off in the water. So this is a good question. This is when we get off, and this happens to a lot of people. Like a ton of people like want to do their morning skincare routine. Something happens in the middle of the day, or they do sports, or they're exercising, and they're like, should I redo it all? And then you're basically going to spend twice as much money because you're using twice as much product, because you're using and reapplying everything twice a day. Now, I know that actually, I think there's been, I'm trying to think who I saw talk about this. There has been some thought, and there are some studies that show that like, if you're using it from the morning till afternoon, you're probably going to get a substantial amount of benefit from those active ingredients. Especially when you consider that a lot of these ingredients get rubbed off, wear off after a period of like 6, 8, 12 hours. So it may not be entirely necessary to redo everything after washing your face in the afternoon if you've already done it in the morning. Might it benefit you? Yeah, I think you might get a little bit more benefit from adding it on again. And then, maybe washing it off in the evening, if that's what you're probably going to end up doing before you go to bed. But I don't think you're going to be missing out on the majority of the benefit. So it's up to you. I think it is reasonable, though, to do your skincare routine in the morning, go throughout your day, and then, as you mentioned, work out in the afternoon, clean your face, wash your face, and then be very, very deliberate, thoughtful, minimalistic about what you're reapplying in the afternoon. Or maybe you don't reapply at all, and you're still going to have a good amount of benefit from the time those products were put on your face from the morning to the afternoon. That's a pretty substantial amount of time. You might not, again, get 100% of the benefit that you would, but it's reasonable. It's reasonable to like not redo everything. Let's see here. How to fade dark spots caused by a mosquito bite on a 3-year-old child. So anytime I'm dealing with pediatric questions, I always have to think first, like, is anything I would use in adults something that I can't use in a child? And if not, you're going to treat it the same. So post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, that's actually what this question ends up being. Because what happens with an arthropod or a mosquito bite is that they elicit a huge immune response. And I love this because we see it under the microscope. We see like a very specific type of cell called an eosinophil rush to that area, floods that area, sheets of the cells just surround and leave the vasculature and like flood that skin. And so assuming you've calmed this down with an anti-inflammatory, assuming the itch is gone, it's not being scratched or irritated, then you're left with this post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. And it's not really anything different than other types of hyperpigmentation. So you're going to be using the same things. Now, kid skin is often more sensitive than adult skin. So these can be irritating. Niacinamide is an ingredient that is gentle for most people and can help with hyperpigmentation. It's vitamin B3. We consume a lot of it in our diets. I mean, I can't imagine using it topically is going to be a fine option for a child here as well. Azelaic acid, safe in pregnancy, safe for children. Like you can spot treat with this. And so we have some vitamin C, topically is like fairly inert. And then we have some of these more inert hyperpigmentation treatments that can be helpful. Sun protection is paramount anytime you're talking about hyperpigmentations, even just sunscreen. And then of course we have other things that retinoids are like FDA approved. Oh, shoot, is it down to 9 years old? Something like that. Not saying they're not safe younger. We just don't have studies like robustly proving that they're safe younger. But we do use this off-label sometimes to spot treat like molluscum or something like that in kids. But so like your retinoids, kojic acid, tranexamic acid, all those other things might be helpful too topically. But again, that first list are some of the more mild ones if you really want to be safer. From Sweet Potato, where's Dr. Shaw? Dr. Shaw is working clinically. I mentioned earlier in the video, because I know a lot of people are like asking, just because I'm present a little bit more. I just happen to have a little bit more flexibility right now than he does. And we really, really wanted to get more involved like for a long time with doing lives and interacting, which is why we made the Discord, because that's easy for us to like float in and out of. But I just have a little more time. So thankfully I'm able to do this. And then we always do our own things together too, like shoot the videos, try to do lives together stuff as well. Let's see how we're doing. Ooh, yeah. Okay, so Mr. Cyberthrone. It's like an intimidating name. Mr. Cyberthrone, any advice on how to get rid of red cheeks, neither retinoids or SPF 50? They don't help, basically, is what they're saying. So red cheeks, what's causing the redness is going to be either inflammation or vessels. Again, anytime you're talking about vessels, especially if red cheeks is usually probably going to be caused by that vessel type of rosacea, things like metronidazole gel have been shown to maybe decrease that progression of the redness, but very little topicals are actually going to help treat it. Like things that soothe, like Cintella Asiatica, can help decrease inflammation if there's that component. But unfortunately, if it's at all vasculature that's already dilated, vessels that are already dilated, topicals are just so disappointing. So disappointing. But if it's inflammation, that's a whole other thing. I mean, we have a whole list of things that can be like red cheeks. I mean, so I guess that's kind of the crux of being a physician sometimes is you're like, oh yeah, probably erythrometallic rosacea. I haven't seen it. I'm not sure. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, well, what else can cause it? Acute systemic lupus, like it causes like a red cheeks and a butterfly distribution. I mean, rosacea obviously causes it in the same distribution. Any type of photosensitive condition can be triggered by medications, can be triggered by other things. That could all cause red cheeks. There's just like a whole laundry list of things. So this is like the utility of a doctor, I guess, sometimes. So if you see a doctor, you see a dermatologist specifically for something like that, they can confirm what it is you're going after and then hopefully give you like a very limited and isolated list of things that can specifically target it. Because that's sometimes like communicating to your doctor is really important. Like be very forward about your goals with your doctor, about how much something bothers you, because sometimes we see 100 patients a day with red cheeks. And unless you identify and let us know, like, this is very important to me, we may not know that we needed to hone in and focus there because we see it so often and just don't like focus in and narrow in on it. So let's see. Any tips for preventing breakouts when you have oily skin? Yes. So same things like decrease the oil production with retinoids, niacinamide being the paramount, most best studied. And then, of course, those both do double duty and help with acne. And then once you get that helped, then using anything that complements acne, like topical antibiotics, even though we don't talk about it that much on social media. I mean, and it kind of makes sense, right? It's not something everyone has access to. Antibiotics always have to come with an explanation because of a lot of stigma. But really, they're underrepresented. Like they're very effective, like very decently effective for mild to moderate acne. So that once you get the oil production a little bit better controlled, that's super helpful. But over the counter, you can also use things like salicylic acid to do double duty, oil and oily skin and acne and breakouts. Sulfur, also valuable, especially if you have oily skin and rosacea. Very common combination for acne-like lesions and oily skin. Very common to be rosacea as well. How can I treat, How can I treat acne while pregnant? So again, I'll just direct you like my Instagram if you really want to do like a longer look, deep dive. I think I did like a 5-6 minute video just talking about acne and anti-aging and pregnancy, and then just kind of putting out some of the data out there, like what ingredients are safe, who says what, why might it not be safe. It's like Dr.LJ Maxfield at Instagram, or just Google that, Dr. Maxfield Instagram. But overall with acne and pregnancy, just a hard time because the flares from the hormones can make the acne a lot worse. Plus, you can't use some of the most effective ingredients. But to substitute for this, the retinoid, or a substitute for the face. We'll start with the cleanser. Substitute for the cleanser first. First of all, salicylic acid. ACOG, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, say it's probably safe. The American Academy of Dermatology says it's probably safe. But there is some thought that maybe not. So this is highly individualized. You and your OBGYN hashed out, like, can salicylic acid be used for me topically? Could be safe still. That's alternatives though. You can use glycolic acid washes that have a similar effect as salicylic acid. Benzoyl peroxide, also a little bit of controversy about this. Might be safe, might be not. Probably safe though. But glycolic acid washes like your substitute there. For the retinoid alternatives, you need to decrease oil production, so that's niacinamide. You want to decrease inflammation and hyperpigmentation. Azelaic acid is one of the best studied ingredients in pregnancy. Topical antibiotics, again, underutilized, under-talked about, but often in category, some of them are category B, are probably safe in pregnancy, like those you can comfortably use in pregnancy. So those are like some options for acne in pregnancy, and even a little bit there that can help with the hyperpigmentation that comes with pregnancy as well. Let's see. Let's try to flip around. I want to make sure I don't like miss too much. This question did pop up. Let's see here. So sorry, this is a hard name. It's not someone I've seen before, but Utkarsh Tiwari, Dr. Maxfield, what are the side effects of finasteride and how to overcome these side effects? So finasteride is an oral medication. It has been used historically to treat prostate cancer because it blocks the conversion of like testosterone to dihydrotestosterone, which makes all that this hormone-sensitive cancer, prostate cancer, worse. Now, the way that works for hair loss is that it again decreases that conversion. We have dihydrotestosterone that's super, super active, and it decreases that amount. The side effects have historically been thought to be like especially like erectile dysfunction, which is like really concerning. Some people like report like loss of energy and things like that. The best way I think to overcome the side effects is, I honestly, I would talk to your doctor, let them run with you in your medical history and see if you're like a good candidate for this medicine, which most people are, to be honest, most people are. And then just to get like really medical and try to put it in medical terms, like erectile dysfunction is actually a very difficult thing to evaluate, treat, and predict because there's a huge psychological component to this. So it can be a very self-perpetuating cycle. Most people do just fine with this. Most people do just fine. Absolutely highly effective medicine for hair loss. I think it's worth it for most people. But just I think it's like a very personalized conversation between your doctor, just talking a lot about your history to make sure that it's right for you. But it's definitely a medication that's worth investigating. Let's see. Oh, wait, should we, from Sarah A, CNA, should we also be using our facial cleanser in the morning or only at night? This is actually also controversial, and reasonably so, because if you think about after sleeping, like everyone wakes up with very different skin after they sleep. Some people wake up with super oily skin, like very, very oily skin. Some people wake up with like dry skin. Some people wake up with just skin. And the only thing you are really getting overnight is what's on your pillow and what your skin is making. So if you're someone who wakes up with very oily skin, or you never wash your pillowcases, which I highly advise you do, um, even though I'm not great about it, but I still highly advise you do, because that's going to help you like not have harbor any bacteria or hair products on your pillowcase that would rub all over your face when you're moving in your sleep. But anyway, if you're very oily skin, or you have like dirty pillowcases and you get all that gunk on your face, then yes, I think you should wash your face in the morning every time, pretty much every time. And you can use some of your more aggressive, more bougie, more fancy facial cleansers there in the morning. But it's also okay. It's also okay if you have very normal skin to just do a very gentle light cleanse in the morning. Because the whole point is to reset the skin to make sure that your actives are in contact with your skin and can function throughout the day optimally. So it's totally okay to use a gentle cleanser. Some people very minimally have to cleanse it all in the morning because they just have very healthy skin, very nice skin, and they don't need to reset very much. Some people advocate for not cleansing at all in the morning, and I understand that because some people have very sensitive skin, and 2 cleanses a day is too much. So I completely understand that train of thought. The majority of people, though, using a gentle cleanser in the morning is enough, and then putting on your actives. And a lot of times, like those dedicated, medicated, or fancy cleansers with a lot of different ingredients, they're best at night for just really removing everything that was on during the day, including your actives, makeup, debris from the world. And we do this with acne too. We often will say, hey, yeah, use your, well, actually a little bit backwards there, but we split up the cleansers, like use one gentle cleanser here, use like your medicated cleanser here, separate them by time, only because we don't want to over aggravate the facial skin. Let's see. All right, shoot. It's already one. I'll do a few more here. I saw one though. I was like, oh no, what do we do with this? It was basically like, how do I treat skin tags at home? And this is like one of those questions, which I don't know why I'm bothering answering it. Like, but I mean, what am I going to say? As a doctor, I'm like, I can't tell you to go cut something off at home. That's absurd. Like, what if something happens? Like, we have to be very cautious with stuff like this. Skin tag. And what if you cut off something that's not a skin tag? What if you cut off a mole that was going bad? Like, that's why dermatologists hate self mole removal kits. Like, a lot of times, what if it's not a mole? What if it wasn't a benign mole? Skin tags, pretty much everyone knows what a skin tag looks like, though. I'm not going to be able to give you like dedicated advice on how to get them off at home, though, just based off of who I am. But I completely understand the frustration. And I'll tell you what we do in the office, actually, just so you have an idea of what to contrast that to. What we do is we clean the area. We prep the area so that it is then clean and sterile. And then we get sterile scissors. Curved iris scissors is what I use the most. And depending on the thickness of the skin tag, either we just go flush with the skin and snip it, or if it's like a really thick stalk, we can numb that up and snip it. Obviously, I'm wearing gloves for this procedure anytime the blood is involved. They don't bleed tremendously. Usually they don't. But that's probably like the most common way to approach skin tags in the office. There are a million ways you can treat them at home and in the office. But that's just the most common there. SPF from Shamabosa. Do you need to double cleanse with an oil to properly remove SPF? Yes and no. So it depends on the SPF. Just like makeup, it depends on your type of foundation, like mineral sunscreens, the inorganic sunscreens, especially if they're not nano-sized, they're like very thick and very hard to get off. So I personally do generally need a double cleanse. I wear some thick sunscreen because I'm an outdoor person and like I'm in the water all the time. Not all the time because I work a lot, but any chance I get. So I use, I've even used like, what is this? I think this is what I was looking for. Yeah, I've used like squalane oil to kind of to mix it in with that oil, that heavy, non-water soluble sunscreen. And then I'll come behind it with generally a salicylic acid cleanser, like CeraVe salicylic acid cleanser, because salicylic acid also helps break down oils and then rinse it off. There are a lot of nice dedicated oil-based cleansers you can use. Or you can find a cleanser. One I'm still obsessed with it. It's like MD Solar Science is the brand, but it's a cleanser with some nice facial oils, nice oils in it that are good for the face, like jojoba oil. I think it's got safflower oil in it too. And I forget the other oil in it. But it's kind of a middle of the road one where you kind of have a little bit of an oil-based cleanser plus a little bit of a lightweight cleanser in it. And for me, that's done really well removing thick sunscreen. So it all depends on your sunscreen. But I do find that that's one of the situations where double cleansing is necessary. And double cleansing is not for everybody, by the way. Everyone definitely does not need to use that. Okay. This one, this can be like a really important thing. I just want to make sure I hit this. Roy Casas, how do I treat cystic pores on the body? And then in parentheses, hidradenitis suppurativa. Hidradenitis suppurativa is, you can actually probably credit Dr. Shah for bringing a lot of attention to this through his social media, like his personal TikTok. And I'm so thankful that it got as much attention as it had, and that like this is something that goes undiagnosed for years. So what HS is, hidradenitis suppurativa, it's you get cysts under the skin, draining sinus tracts, especially in the armpits, groin, back side. Some people have it on the face, and if left untreated, this can be scarring and disfiguring in like very sensitive areas. So the best ways to treat this over the counter. So first of all, it's not a hygiene problem. It's just like, it's not right. Like it seems like it might be given locations, but it's not. However, things that are very antibacterial, like chlorhexidine, we use this for surgical preps, and this is very effective as a cleanser. It can help remove the bacteria in the area that contributes to the inflammation. Now, this is like your own body making the inflammation, making the cysts from the inside out. So it's not going to cure it, but this is like the best cleanser you can probably look for to help wash your body for this. I would highly, highly encourage anyone with HS to see a dermatologist, because we do have to use oral medications to get this under control, to like decrease any bacteria, to decrease the cysts, and to even surgically open up some of the sinus tracts if we have to. And then also some medications now that are coming out to the kind of like globally and hopefully more selectively in the future decrease that immune system. Because again, this is the person's body making these highly inflammatory cysts and sinuses deeply from within the skin and from the inside out. And so topicals are just not great for it, but chlorhexidine would be the first place I would start if you're looking to try to minimize them. Let's see here. Okay, two more. I think I said two more twice, but I really do have to go. So let's do two more. I really appreciate you all coming to this. I really do enjoy this. Okay. All right. So this question, I kind of just find it fun. So Layla, how to prevent getting 11s by your eyebrows prees. For anyone who's not sure, we had the video on wrinkles. That's extremely in depth. It was a lot longer than we intended it to be, but that was actually off the cuff too. I was like, hey, can we talk about wrinkles? I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. And Dr. Shaw was like, yeah, let's do it. Anyway, so for anyone who doesn't know, these are your 11s. They're formed by the procerus muscle here with your corrugator muscles. And they make this line here. I mean, they're intimately involved with facial expression, right? So some people just don't have it because they don't frown as much. I do this all the time. Like when I'm reading, when I'm thinking, when I'm whatever. And so I have pretty prominent muscles there and I like them. But you can try to adjust your facial movements. I actually did this because I don't love these, even though I love some wrinkles, like these ones I don't love. And so I was very deliberate and paid attention to try to minimize this expression. And then I gave up on it and now I do it all the time. You can actually do that. You can kind of train yourself, just be aware of your movements. There are frownies. I know some professionals love these. They kind of are like tape basically, and they keep you from moving your muscles. I don't believe in them personally, just personal preference. I don't think they help, but that's a possibility. Botox paralyzes the muscle. Actually, this is from Skin Diva. Thank you, Skin Diva, for providing me this. And we're going to do a giveaway here. But argireline, if you don't want to commit to Botox, argireline, we talked about this in the wrinkles video too. It has a similar mechanism as Botox. It works similarly, and it can help with wrinkles. It's so easy to incorporate into your skincare routine because for wrinkles, it works completely different than anything else we have topically. So I'm a huge fan of it. It has some data. The physiology makes perfect sense. And if wrinkles are something that bother you, you're going to use your collagen building things to minimize things like that. You're going to use, and then you can use this. It just incorporates so easily into a skincare routine, and then it should soften the movements. Definitely not to the extent of Botox, but it can soften the movements and prevent them from forming. So that's easy to complement. I do not like filler really in the glabella area. So you can do filler to fill volume here, but that's a very high risk area with filler. So I don't like it there. I don't do it there myself personally when I'm doing that. Yeah, but that's pretty much a good spectrum for that. And then last one. What is that? What happened? Let's see here. All right. I'll do that one. Sorry. Thank you again for joining in. I'm going to do one more question here. This one I like is just kind of an intricate question. But this is from Image Raya MRC. Hi, Dr. Maxfield. Is hair loss caused by a vitamin D deficiency? How long does it take to see improvements while taking vitamin D supplements? So it's an intricate question because you have to think about what vitamin D does and how to become deficient. Vitamin D deficiency is pretty darn common in the Western world, and I would venture worldwide. Now, we used to, when I was doing more like internal medicine training and stuff like that, we would see those lab results very frequently. And it's I think it's more common than you would suspect. And now, the reason I want to pick this up is because we talked about vitamin D deficiency in sunlight. So UVB is involved with sunlight, and UVB is involved in vitamin D synthesis. Sorry. It's very complicated, but it basically converts provitamin D in your skin to previtamin D, which gets isomerized in the blood and then gets activated by the liver and then the kidney. It's this beautiful physiologic pathway that I love. Now, the signs of it are kind of random or non-specific a lot of times, which is why a lot of people say, oh, you have vitamin D deficiency, or it's a possibility, similar to thyroid. Like if you have fatigue, you have hypothyroidism, or it's possible. Not always true, but it's possible. It doesn't prototypically cause very prominent hair loss. It could potentially cause maybe a diffuse thinning, but it's not a highly characteristic feature of it. Now, how long does it take? It may not take that long necessarily because we have replacement at such high concentrations. So I think standard for someone who's vitamin D deficient is 1,000 international units, which is over the counter. Mostly this is going to affect bone health and things like that because vitamin D is involved in calcium absorption. But how long is it going to take to replenish your vitamin D stores? It might not be that long. I mean, I would venture a period of a month or two. Now that's not 100%. That's kind of arbitrary because I don't work in that space as much anymore, but it doesn't take all that much. Now, if you have hair loss from it, I would consider is it really from it, or is this telogen effluvium, that diffuse thinning and shedding, from another cause? But it really can be caused by any stressor in the body. So it's possibly related, but maybe not entirely solely the cause, if that makes any sense. All right. Low ferritin, conversely, is more related to it. Low iron stores is more prototypically related to that, even though Definitely not every time. Usually if someone comes in with hair loss and they're profusely thin, I want to offer as much as I possibly can to people because I know how important this is for people. Like you look in the mirror and your hair is like a part of you. And so really want to go extra mile always for people with hair loss. One of the things we do is order iron levels on some people who've not responded to plastic therapy or like for select people. And like, you can wager money, it's probably going to come back normal. Vitamin deficiencies are vastly over talked about, I think. And again, always happy to go the extra mile to make sure we have identified what's going on or what could cause it. But usually these labs are going to come back normal. Not always, and that's why we do them, but usually they do come back normal. All right. Thank you all for tuning in. Greatly appreciate you taking your time out on a Friday. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't even tell you why I didn't do it on Wednesday. So I said last week, like I do some surgical cases with an oculoplastic surgeon here on Wednesdays. So if we're done early or if I get lunch, try to hop on here and do this with you. Sometimes I don't get that break. And so we did that today on Friday. But thank you again so much for popping in. I'm going to have to get back to work here. And there was something about vitamin C. Lab Muffin, awesome vitamin C video on YouTube. She just posted it. I highly respect her work, especially when she gets into lab studies. And then lab-based things. That's like her space. She talks a beautiful thing on vitamin C. I loved her last video on that. So anyway, thank you so much. Always appreciate you. I guess that's it. I think we're having a video come up today or tomorrow. I have to review that today, actually, and make sure it's good to go. But thanks again. I feel like we should say like, comment, subscribe, but like you're still in that habit. But I got to get back to work. I appreciate y'all. Bye.